Tonight on Reel to Reel, we discuss the ministry of being single.
And meet the man of many voices.
Mike Gallagher looks at popular movies.
And we'll meet guitarist Eric Law.
Hello, I'm Sean Hughescamp.
And I am Monsignor Charles Meinov. Welcome to this edition of Reel to Reel. By its nature, Christianity is missionary. Jesus said, "Go forth and preach the gospel to all nations." That puts upon every Christian the incumbent vocation to move about the world and tell the good news. And so they're crisscrossing, they're moving back and forth, and all of this in the name of vocation of Christian life. We'd like to talk about vocation and Christian life, and a special emphasis tonight. I want you to meet Dan Hilferty. His motion in Christian commitment began at St. Joe's University, and then he went with the Jesuit volunteers to Portland, Oregon, where he worked in community center. He's back now and working as the community relations chairman at Misericordia Hospital. Dan got crisscrossed by Patty Byrne. She went to college at the University of California in Berkeley. Now she's back here east, working in Philadelphia, the program for the homeless, with the Mercy Corps. And I'm glad you both landed together so we can have this conversation a special way tonight. Dan, let's begin and specifically say, what is a Jesuit volunteer?
Well, Monsignor, Jesuit Volunteer Corps is an organization of young, single lay, well, not necessarily young, but single lay people who go to various parts of the United States and work either in urban communities or rural communities. It's been in existence for approximately 20 years and started in California.
Is the Mercy Corps much different from that, Patty?
No, basically it was started on the model of the Jesuit Volunteer Corps, but we do have a married couple with us this year, as well as single.
What I'd like us to talk about most tonight, and I think Sean would agree with this, we've been talking among ourselves about the notion of vocation as a Christian. And I've had experience in retreat work where people will say to us, you talk about marriage, you talk about religious life and priesthood, but you never talk about a single vocation. And I'd like to address the idea that so many of you have been involved now, you and other of your friends, in volunteer work with a Christian commitment. Is it possible, do you think, that that is a specific vocation in the church? Do you see it as a committed way of life, say, forever?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't think it can be a commitment such as joining the priesthood or becoming a sister, but I think there is a place for it in the church.
Now, see, I do. I kind of think that maybe, and just as a plain example, and I mean plain, uncluttered, a woman dies leaving behind her children, and so her sister moves in as Aunt Matilda and takes over that family. Now, by circumstances, she commits herself to a single life and does great service to the church, great raising of children and their education. Why can't that somehow be put into the context of a commitment and a vocation? I don't think vocation belongs to me only, or to you who are married. Do you see any need, opportunity for that?
I see some people who might be able to fit in that. I see also sort of the vocation of being a lay minister, which this woman could be part of, but I also see the possibility of being single or being married as part of the lay ministry movement to the church.
Patty, if you talk about lay ministry and being single in an open-ended way, the way that you're talking about, with no specific amount of time, what makes the Mercy Corps experience different from joining, say, Peace Corps or Vista? Isn't it, again, doing service to others, but is there a religious dimension to it at all then?
Yes, I believe there is. As Monsignor said earlier, to be a Christian is to go forth and spread the good news. And when you join Mercy Corps, you are working as part of the body of Christ, as part of the church, working to change society, bring about social justice to people. That is different than doing it through the government or through secular groups.
I guess more specifically, I want to say that while there's a need for you as Jesuit volunteers and Mercy Corps people to move in to those social needs homeless, the youth people you've now found in Portland. But there's also a commitment of a Christian to have a responsibility to the body of Christ. So I can foresee a comptroller of a business committing himself to a single state of life, to live a full Christian action, and if he doesn't find something, not as an avocation, but as because he is a Christian, becoming the best kind of comptroller he can be, making a substantial living, also serving the church. I can see that kind of thing.
Sure.
Well, for instance, how would your parents, you both were finished college and university, they say, well, they spend all this money for education, now you're just going to go play games with children and take care of old men. Do they have any reaction to that?
Well, I think the reaction in my case was one in which when I went, there was no problem. When I came back, I think a lot of my friends and to a certain extent my family felt that maybe I should look towards a more traditional, career pattern. I think that if you make that choice, you have to be willing to accept the possibility that some people aren't going to appreciate your choice.
How about your family and your friends, Patty?
My family was very supportive. When Dan said his family thought something more traditional would be better, I believe my family has always said, don't be traditional, that to be a true Christian, you cannot be traditional. You have to do something that's not like what everyone else is doing. My friends were a little bit of a different story and thought I should go into the business world or get a normal job.
Sean, please.
Working as a single lay minister, both of you, in the back of your mind, are you always thinking that one day you'll get married?
Well, I definitely am thinking I am engaged. But I think the point I would like to make is that when I decided to go along this career path, it never entered my mind whether I can do this as a single person or as a married person. I feel that if you commit yourself to the lay ministry, you can do it just as well as a married person. You don't have to make that commitment that I will be single for the rest of my life.
How do you feel, Patty?
I believe that being single has allowed me to commit myself probably more than I could have if I was married. I have no family responsibilities, really no financial obligations. I can really commit myself right now just to my ministry. I do see a possibility that I might get married in the future, and maybe I won't. I don't know at this point.
I can see young adults 25 to 30 years of age in a serious situation, being single, have found reasonable employment, are able to divert themselves in a good sense of that word in real Christian charity, real Christian operation, coming to under spiritual direction to be able to say, I would like to commit myself, even under private vow with a confessor, to say, I'd like to commit myself with this way of life and vocation.
Do you mean by vocation?
Single and stay in this kind of ministry. Does that make any sense to your peers or your friends?
I think it does, but I have to say again that I think if you do make a choice, you brought the example up of a comptroller in a company or any career pattern. If you have certain Christian values, certain Catholic values that you want to emphasize, chances are that you're going to come in contact with a man or a woman who share those same beliefs. And I think you can continue that ministry as a married person. That's not saying that someone can't make that commitment and say, I am going to remain a single person.
Well, I happen to think there can be that kind of a commitment to the body of Christ in a special way. I wonder if you see its feasibility at all.
I can see that commitment. I'm not sure if I even know anybody who would be sort of, well, maybe they've just never thought about it, but I don't know that anyone that I'm in contact would make that commitment right now, sort of as a lifetime commitment. I would tend to agree with Dan.
I think of one person I know, and she just comes to my mind at the moment. She's always been working as a volunteer to the Better World Movement. And I'm pretty convinced that she is committed by, if not vow, by certainly something very close to a vow and commitment altogether. So I'd like to think that we might be able to open up some opportunities for people to think and pray about the varying opportunities for vocations in the church. Not beyond, but marriage and religious life are not the only ones.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder about you. Have you ever thought about vocation, what you're doing is a vocation to the body of Christ, or is it happenstance?
Stay with us as Mike Gallagher looks at popular movies and Eric Law entertains with an original composition. next in Expressions, we'll meet Eric Law. He's a theology student from the Episcopal Divinity School in Cambridge, who writes and performs his own songs. Many times, he accompanies his performances with a slideshow of photos that he's taken. We'll see some of those pictures tonight as he sings, "Come Fill Me With Your Spirit."
When the birds are singing in the morning air, and the trees are whispering to the gentle wind, I know you're here. When I feel the warmth of the morning sun, and the wind is fingering through my hair, I know you're here. Come, fill me with your spirit, and come, fill me with your love. I love you. I used to wonder, what am I living for? But now I see what you're trying to do in my life. And I'm thankful to have this opportunity to co-create with you, the greatest creator of all. Come, fill me with your spirit, and come, fill me with your love. I love you, I love you, I love you.
Hello, I'm Mike Gallagher. This week I'm going to talk about 3 movies, 2 of which, Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Lord of the Apes, and Iceman, are strikingly similar in theme, and one of which, Romancing the Stone, is at least in intent, a tongue-in-cheek adventure saga. The last first. A best-selling author of romance fiction, Kathleen Turner, sedate and timorous by nature, finds herself plunged into wild adventure when she goes to Colombia to ransom her kidnapped sister. The handsome American adventurer, Michael Douglas, turns up to save her at fairly regular intervals. The movie tries hard, much too hard in fact, but it never quite achieves the light touch that is supposed to take the realistic edge off things and allow for laughs. Douglas seems to be part of the trouble, maybe the major part. Miss Turner is very good, but Douglas's earnestness flattens out the fun. The picture, as a consequence, falls between 2 stools. Some of the violence is rather graphic, and there is some partial nudity in a bedroom sequence, making this mature fare. In Iceman, the talented Australian director Fred Skepsey has too little to work with in a lackluster script about an Arctic expedition revivifying a frozen Neanderthal man. There's a running argument between a scientist as humanist, Timothy Hutton, and a more clinical type, Lindsay Krauss, as to what to do with him, but the quarrel fails to generate enough heat to thaw out anything. And so the movie slows down rapidly after some initial excitement and becomes all too reminiscent of things we have seen before. John Lone is very good, however, as the Neanderthal man. There's only some mild profanity, and the picture is suited to a wide audience. Greystoke is a much more successful look at a man trapped between 2 cultures. Director Hugh Hudson, who did Chariots of Fire, goes back to one of the most popular and enduring heroes of our era, Tarzan the Ape Man, though the name itself is never uttered. The story begins in 1885 on the sumptuous estate of the Earl of Greystoke, the incomparable Ralph Richardson in his last role. The Earl is bidding farewell to his son, who is off to Africa with his wife for a year's sojourn. Tragedy overcomes the young couple, however. They are shipwrecked off the coast of Africa, and after surviving for a time, they perish after the young lord's wife gives birth to a son, who, of course, is raised by a female ape as her own. Years later, a Belgian explorer, Ian Holm, rescued by Tarzan, Christopher Lambert, tells him of his noble ancestry, and brings him back to his delighted grandfather. All goes well as long as the old man lives, but once he dies, the new Earl of Greystoke, torn between two worlds and in love with Jane Porter, his grandfather's ward, has to make a decision as to where he really belongs. Greystoke is marvelous to look at, whether the scenery is the jungle or the green English countryside, and the acting is very good, especially Sir Ralph's. But the very intelligence that director Hudson brings to the old story presents problems. Good pulp fiction, good comic book fare, cannot bear the kind of scrutiny it gets here. This difficulty aside, Greystoke is well worth seeing. You should be warned, however, that the jungle violence is rather graphic, and a very brief bedroom sequence is all the more erotic for its quite untypical restraint. It's a picture for mature viewers, therefore, including older teenagers. Well, that's it for this week. I'm Mike Gallagher for Arts Review.
And living along with them all alone. Exaggerating, imaginating, skinny bones Jones.
Earlier in the program tonight, we talked a lot about young people finding ministries for themselves in the church. Well, we who are older are not exempt from that search. Next up is a mature gentleman who found a unique ministry and has a great time performing it.
Here I am, Lord, making my way, trying to find a reason I'm a part of your day. If you could use a helping hand, hear me pray. Here I am, Lord, use me. You gave me my talents, you gave me your love, you gave me a chance to see heaven above. You gave me the time to show what I could be. So while I'm here, Lord, use me while I'm ready.
For the last 12 years, Dallas McKinnon has lived on the beautiful western coast of Oregon. With Haystack Rock almost in his backyard, he now calls Cannon Beach his home. The calmness of this tiny waterfront community is more appealing to him today than the bustling pace of Los Angeles, where he lived and worked for many years.
Well, it's because we had our roots in Oregon, and the scene in the valley, in the San Fernando Valley, was getting kind of rough with my kids in school. This drug business was beginning to flourish, and I didn't want my kids to have any part of that.
So Dallas, his wife Betty, and their 8 children headed north, leaving behind his successful Hollywood career.
I've never had as much encouragement down in Hollywood as I certainly had here, to the extent that I want to do my own show for old Skinny Bones Jones, a tall-tale telefiller. And I'll tell you something about him. Hey, way out west with sticks and stones, where there's no telephones nor ice cream cones, and living along with them all alone. Exaggerating, imaginating, Skinny Bones Jones. That's Jones.
Although you may not recognize Dallas McKinnon's face, or even his name, chances are you've heard his voice, probably many times.
See you real soon.
Dallas is one of the few Hollywood talents who has made a very successful career at doing voice characterizations. He worked for years with Walt Disney on movies such as Mary Poppins, Winnie the Pooh, Jungle Book, and 101 Dalmatians.
And here I am in that studio with Uncle Walt sitting behind the control room panel, and there are 4 of us out here in this big studio, and each one of us have to do different dog barks. So I'm over in this corner going, then I go over in this corner and I go, and I go in this corner.
In addition to movie voiceovers, Dallas also worked on numerous TV series.
Hi, boys and girls. Wow, here we are at Riverdale High. Remember the voice of Archie? Oh, yes, and Mr. Weatherby, the school principal of Riverdale. Hi.
But to Dallas McKennon, life's meaningful experiences come not so much from being behind a microphone as getting out and sharing the gospel message with his audience. Here he performs for employees of the Goodwill Industries in Portland.
Howdy, everybody. Howdy. You know what we always say is howdly-do. Can you all give me a nice big howdly-do? Howdy-do. Howdy-do. Good for you. Every time I get in front of that mic, I always ask for the same guidance, and I get the faith that I need. Every time I get on the stage, I always ask for that guidance. And without it, there's just no way that I can get out and do a show. At last, my gun was ready, and of course, my aim was steady, right for the bottom of that tree. But what I didn't figure for I pulled that trigger, them bears is headed straight for me. Oh! Boom! Boom! It's Daniel Boone giving a helping hand, helping to build our country.
Oh yes, Dallas McKennon has appeared in front of the camera as well as behind the microphone. Remember Cincinnatus, the storekeeper in the old Daniel Boone series? That was Dallas.
Helping to build our country stronger. Stronger. Building a better land. Everybody have a big laugh.
He gives me a kick, I'll put it that way. Kind of makes the day go a little bit faster.
Dallas also uses the entertainment platform to remind his audiences to be thankful of their own talents.
Now, they don't necessarily want to be actors. It's just that they have a joy in wanting to express themselves that way. It helps them come out of their shell like I was helped come out of my shell. And the greatest help that I got in getting out of my shell was finding out that I had to turn to a much higher power than just my own ability to think about it. I had to have some help. Come on, everybody. Let's all show Mark how we can wake up the same way. Take a deep breath, spread your wings, smile, and go. Now, I noticed some of you laid eggs when you did that. So we'll go.
Dallas still does occasional commercial work, but he devotes the majority of his time creating his own shows and characters, stories that have meaning and morals.
I've got to have a reason for doing a show. This is why I tell Sunday school stories with old Skinny Bones Jones. That's why I love to work in churches where they want me. And all faiths, I don't care, as long as it's a Christian faith. I feel that God has shown me through, and I just took it out of my pocket, I have this little guidebook about how you can find God in your life through the 4 simple steps. You know, just listen for that knock on the door, open it, and be ready. And that's why Use Me is sort of like my theme that I use through everything I do. And that's why I would like to be able to share the song with you. You know, Lord, there's all kinds of ways we can help you. If we just use our talents, we can help ourselves, at the same time, you in the work that must be done to help others know about you. And if that's the case, Lord, then here we are, Lord, making our way. Now we know the reason we're a part of your day. If you could use each one of us in our special way, then here we are, Lord. Hear each voice, Lord. Here I am, Lord, use me.
Well, tonight's show has certainly run the gamut, from original songs and photos to character voices.
And it typifies the classic definition of beauty, that's diversity in unity. Earlier, the young people talked about their various diverse opportunities, but notice how they had a difficulty in accepting doing something forever? Well, I happen to think that the beauty of our commitment is each of us has something unique, and we ought to think about giving it forever.
Next week, we explore new directions in religious art.
And see parish renewal in action.
We'll meet a family who goes to prison together.
And we'll hear from Father Walt Nolan. Thanks for being with us tonight. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Good night, and God bless you.